Excuse me, sir, I can pitch. Put me in, I'll strike out the side.
The manager didn't even turn around.
Get off my field lawn, boy.
Tyler didn't move. Prescott stepped closer.
You're a broke black kid who smells like grass clippings. You don't belong here. Kids like you don't pitch, they mow now. Get back behind that fence before I call the cops on you.
The whole bleacher section erupted in laughter. Someone hit live on their phone. Not one person said stop, but not a single soul in those bleachers could imagine what was about to happen next, or how expensive that laughter was about to cost every one of them. If you're watching this, go ahead and subscribe and drop where you're listening from in the comments. This is the story of Tyler Shaw, 14 years old, no glove, no cleats, no money, and 3 pitches that made an entire ballpark go dead silent before it exploded. It started on a Saturday in July at a place where the parking lot told you everything you needed to know. Tyler Shaw's alarm went off at 5:45 every morning, not because he had anywhere exciting to be, because the couch got hot by 6. Once sunlight hit the front window of his grandmother's duplex, the cushions turned into a griddle, and sleep was finished whether you liked it or not. Tyler didn't have a bedroom. He had a sofa with a fitted sheet tucked around the cushions and a thin blanket folded at the foot. His clothes lived in a plastic bin beside the television stand. Every morning, same drill. Fold the blanket, stack the pillow, make the couch look like furniture again. Make it look like nobody slept there. Breakfast was cereal in a coffee mug. They were low on bowls, had been for a while. His grandmother moved slow in the mornings. Bad knees, stiff back. But the milk was always cold and the cereal box was always full. That was her language. She didn't say, "I love you" at 5:45 in the morning. She said it with cold milk and a full box of Cheerios. Before walking out the door, Tyler did what he did every single day. He went out back, picked up a scuffed tennis ball from a coffee can on the steps, and faced the cinder block wall behind the duplex. 3 pitches. The first one slapped the wall low and left. The second hit dead center, chest height, a clean pop that echoed off the neighbor's carport. The third, he always saved the best for last, cracked the block so hard a chip of paint flaked off and drifted to the ground like a gray snowflake. His grandmother watched from the kitchen window. She never said a word, just nodded, slow, like she was counting something only she could see. Tyler put the tennis ball back in the can, grabbed his bicycle, and rode 2 miles down Clarkston Road to Ridgewood Athletic Park. He wasn't going to play. He was going to mow. Ridgewood was a different universe. 4 pristine diamonds with laser-graded infields, electronic scoreboards with full-color displays. Sponsor banners from orthodontists and luxury car dealerships lined the outfield fences. Parents arrived in matching team polos, setting up pop-up canopies with catered snack trays underneath. The parking lot looked like a dealership. Tahoes, Expeditions, BMWs, every windshield catching morning sun, every bumper sporting a travel ball decal. Tyler pushed a borrowed mower across the outfield in cut-off shorts and work boots. $40 every other Saturday. The groundskeeper, Earl, liked him because he showed up on time and didn't complain about the edges. That was the entire job interview. Show up, don't complain, get paid. While Tyler mowed, kids his age warmed up 50 yards away. They wore matching uniforms with embroidered names on the back. They carried personalized bat bags. They had pitching coaches and hitting instructors and private trainers their parents paid by the hour. $200 cleats, custom batting gloves. These boys had everything a baseball player could need. Nobody looked at the kid pushing the mower. He was scenery, background noise, invisible. But Tyler looked at them. After finishing the outfield, he'd park the mower behind the equipment shed, walk to the backstop, and stand behind the chain-link fence. His fingers curled through the metal diamonds, and he watched. Not casually, not like a bored kid killing time. Tyler studied. His eyes tracked every pitcher's arm slot. His lips moved when breaking balls crossed the plate. He was counting spin. He watched release points the way a musician reads sheet music. Instinct, obsession, silence. No one taught him this. He learned it from a library book on pitching mechanics he'd checked out 4 times. He practiced grips on a tennis ball because tennis balls were free and baseballs were not. The cinder block wall didn't have a strike zone painted on it, but Tyler had measured one with a yardstick and scratched the corners with a rock. That wall knew his arm better than any coach who ever lived. Then there was manager Dale Prescott. Prescott arrived at Ridgewood like a man walking into a building with his name on it. Golf cart, aviator sunglasses, clipboard wedged under his arm like a general's baton. He barked drills by last name. He ran practice like a boot camp. Parents orbited him, shaking his hand, offering bottled water, asking about tournament brackets with the kind of reverence most people save for doctors. Prescott ran the Ridgewood Bulldogs, the elite 14 and under travel ball. Season fee, $2,800. And that didn't cover gear, travel, or the optional but heavily encouraged winter pitching camp in Scottsdale. $15,000 for 10 days. One afternoon, Tyler watched Prescott pull a kid aside to fix his throwing mechanics. Prescott told the boy to lock his elbow above his shoulder on release. The instruction was wrong. Dead wrong. Locking the elbow at that angle without adjusting wrist angle kills velocity and stresses the rotator cuff. Tyler had read about it, tested it against the wall, knew it in his bones. He said nothing. A parent asked Prescott once about open tryouts. The manager laughed without stopping. "We don't do open tryouts. This isn't rec ball." Tyler heard it through the chain link. He watched one more inning, then got on his bike. But today, something stopped him. The Bulldogs' starting pitcher was struggling. Not a little. The kid was falling apart. Fastballs sailing high, breaking balls burying in the dirt. Every pitch leaked more confidence out of him. The bleachers could see it. The coaches could see it. The 2 scouts sitting in folding chairs behind home plate could definitely see it. Tyler stopped pedaling. He put one foot down on the asphalt and turned back toward the fence. It was showcase day, the kind of Saturday that sharpened everything at Ridgewood. The banners looked crisper, the chalk lines looked whiter, the parents sat straighter. Because today wasn't practice. Today was a performance. And 2 men in folding chairs behind home plate were the audience that mattered. The older scout wore a windbreaker and wrote on a notepad with a pen that looked like it had been in his pocket for a decade. The younger one balanced an iPad on his knee and tapped notes with one finger. They were there to evaluate arms for regional development programs, the kind of pipeline that turned Saturday travel ball kids into high school prospects, and high school prospects into scholarship letters on kitchen tables. The Bulldogs were scrimmaging a rival squad from Marietta, and Prescott's starter had just walked his 3rd consecutive batter. Bases loaded. The kid's shoulders were pulled up around his ears like a turtle retreating into its shell. His landing foot was all over the place. Every pitch was a guess between the backstop and the batter's ribcage. You could see the panic in real time, the way his eyes darted to the dugout after each ball, looking for permission to fall apart. Prescott paced behind the dugout fence, jaw wired shut. He needed a reliever. But his backup arm, a lefty named Garrett, was out with a sprained wrist from batting practice 2 days ago. The bullpen was dead. Nobody was warming up. Nobody was available. On the biggest evaluation day of the summer, the Ridgewood Bulldogs had exactly 0 pitchers left. That's when Tyler stepped up to the chain link. You already heard what he said, and you heard what Prescott said back. But here's what happened between those 2 sentences. The part nobody's phone captured. The part that changed the shape of the next hour. Tyler didn't flinch at the laughter. He didn't step back. He didn't drop his eyes. He stood at that fence with his fingers hooked through the metal and his shoulders square and said one more thing. Quiet. Technical. The kind of sentence that comes from someone who has studied something far longer than anyone around him has been paying attention. Your pitcher's elbow drops below his shoulder on release. That's why he's overthrowing by 6 inches. Every single pitch. The laughter in the bleachers thinned out, not because people understood the mechanics, because they understood the tone. That wasn't a kid guessing, that was a kid who knew. Prescott's face changed, because Tyler was right, and anyone who really understood pitching mechanics heard it, not as trash talk, but as a surgical diagnosis. The correction Prescott had drilled into his own pitcher weeks ago, the elbow lock, the shoulder angle, was the exact mechanical flaw that was destroying the kid's command right now on showcase day in front of scouts. And a 14-year-old who mowed the outfield for $40 had just explained it in one clean sentence through a chain-link fence. The older scout leaned forward in his chair. He didn't look at Prescott. He didn't look at the mound or the dugout or the scoreboard. He looked at Tyler, directly. The way a man looks at something he's been searching for and just found in the last place he expected. He wrote something on his notepad, slowly, deliberately, underlining it twice. The parents who had been laughing shifted in their seats. Not all of them, but enough. Because there's a difference between laughing at a kid who says something stupid and laughing at a kid who says something that turns out to be true. And a few of them, the ones who'd played ball in high school, the ones who understood what elbow below the shoulder on release actually meant, had stopped laughing 30 seconds ago. They just hadn't said anything yet. The phone that had been streaming live was still rolling. The person holding it didn't realize they were recording the most important moment of the entire showcase. And it wasn't happening on the diamond. It was happening at a chain-link fence between a 14-year-old in work boots and a man with a notepad. Something underneath all of that noise, the laughter, the chatter, the aluminum bleachers creaking, had shifted, the way the ground shifts before the surface cracks open. You can't see it yet, but you can feel it in your feet. You can feel it in the way conversations trail off mid-sentence. You can feel it in the way eyes start drifting toward the fence instead of the field. Tyler's fingers stayed hooked in the chain link. He was still on the outside, still the kid who mowed, still invisible on the roster, the schedule, the team photo. But for the first time in 2 years, the inside was paying attention. Prescott did what men like him always do when someone with nothing makes them look small in front of everyone they're trying to impress. He didn't get quieter. He got louder. He turned to his assistant coach, a quiet man named Ray who handled bullpen sessions and equipment, and set it at full bleacher volume, making sure every parent, every player, every scout could hear. Now the lawn boy thinks he's a pitching coach. What's next? The kid who empties the trash cans wants to manage the team? A few parents laughed. The safe kind of laughter, the kind that picks the winning side before the fight is over. Ray looked at Tyler, then at Prescott. He didn't laugh, but he didn't speak up either. He pulled his cap lower and stared at the dirt between his shoes. Remember that moment. Ray's silence right now is going to cost him sleep for weeks, and it's going to matter more than anything Prescott says today. A father in the bleachers. Polo shirt, expensive sunglasses, voice that carried like he was used to being heard, yelled out, "Better check his pockets. Make sure he's not stealing bases and equipment." The laughter doubled, louder, meaner. The kind that feeds on itself. The kind that doesn't need to be funny. It just needs a target. 2 more parents joined in. One of them pointed at Tyler's work boots and said something about dress code. Another shouted that they should make him sign a liability waiver for all the time he's wasting. A mother in the front row turned her face away, clearly uncomfortable, but kept her mouth shut. The kid, streaming on his phone, angled the camera toward Tyler's face, looking for a reaction, looking for tears, looking for content. Not one person in those bleachers stood up and said, "That's enough." Not one. Tyler absorbed every word. No tears, no clenched jaw, no dramatic stare down, no shaking hands. He simply took his hands off the fence, stepped back one pace, and waited. His posture didn't change. His breathing didn't change. His eyes never left the mound. He watched the struggling pitcher the way a surgeon watches a procedure going sideways, not with emotion, but with precision. He wasn't angry. Anger is what happens when you're surprised by cruelty. Tyler wasn't surprised. He was processing. He already knew what was broken on that mound. He'd known for 20 minutes. He knew how to fix it. And he knew, with the quiet certainty of someone who has been underestimated his entire life, that nobody here was going to let him. Not yet. The Marietta squad scored again. A line drive to right center cleared the bases. 4 runs crossed the plate. The Bulldogs were hemorrhaging on showcase day, and Prescott's neck was turning the color of the infield clay. His clipboard shook slightly in his hand. The parents who'd been laughing a moment ago were looking away now. Not at Tyler, not at the field, just away. Because watching your expensive program collapse in front of evaluators isn't entertaining anymore. Then the unexpected thing happened. The older scout stood up from his folding chair. Slowly, he tucked his notepad under his arm, walked to the fence line, and stopped at the section where Tyler was standing. He didn't introduce himself, didn't ask Tyler's name, didn't acknowledge the laughter or the insults. He just leaned on the rail and spoke, conversational, casual, the way you'd test a theory you were already 80% sure about. What would you throw first pitch to a kid who crowds the plate? Tyler didn't blink. Fastball inside, belt high, not to hit him, to move his feet. Then changeup, low and away. He'll chase. The scout tilted his head. The answer had come too fast, too clean. No hesitation, no hedging. Like asking a carpenter which nail to use. The answer was already loaded before the question landed. He looked at Tyler the way a man looks at a lock when he realizes the key has been in his pocket the whole time. He wrote something on his notepad, folded it, and walked back to his chair without another word. No goodbye, no explanation. Just turned and walked. Tyler didn't know what the man wrote. He didn't know his name, his title, or what organization he worked for, but he knew the man had listened. Really listened. Not the way adults listen when they're being polite, the way they listen when they're taking notes. And in Tyler's world, a world of chain-link fences and cinder block walls and mornings where nobody sees you, being listened to like that was rarer than being praised. It was rarer than being noticed at all. Prescott saw it. He saw the scout talking to the lawn boy. His expression cycled through 3 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, annoyance, and then something harder, something territorial. A scout at his showcase was consulting a kid who'd arrived on a bicycle. The story Prescott controlled. The story about money and access and pedigree was slipping out of his hands in real time. He strode to the fence. This time, his voice went low. Private. A whisper with teeth. I don't know who you think you are, but if you're not off this property in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police. And we both know how that ends for a kid who looks like you. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Before Tyler could respond, before he had to decide between swallowing it and walking away, Ray stepped in. Not with a speech, not with heroics, just with practicality. He walked up beside Prescott, hands in his back pockets, and said it the way you'd suggest a lineup change in the 6th inning of a blowout nobody cares about anymore. Dale, we're down 4 runs with no arms in the pen. Let the kid face 3 batters. He can't do it, he walks. No harm. Prescott stared at Ray like the man had just suggested forfeiting. But then something crossed the manager's face. A slow, mean, calculating smile. The kind that doesn't come from humor. The kind that comes from seeing an angle. Because Prescott suddenly realized 3 batters meant 3 chances for Tyler to fail. In public, on camera, in front of scouts and parents and every kid on both rosters. 3 public humiliations instead of 1. And then Tyler would leave, permanently, and the story would write itself. The delusional lawn boy who thought he could hang with real players. Prescott turned back to the fence. His voice went loud again. Performance loud. Bleacher loud. Fine. You want to pitch? Pitch. 3 batters. You give up 1 hit, 1 single, 1 walk, 1 anything that isn't a strikeout. You leave. And you don't come back. Ever. Not to mow, not to watch, not to stand behind that fence. You're done. He paused. Let the weight settle. Those are the terms. Take them, or take your bike and go home. Tyler looked at Prescott, not with anger, not with fear, with something closer to patience. The way you'd look at a locked door you've been waiting 2 years to walk through. He nodded. Once. 3 batters. He said he would strike out the side. He meant every word. Someone unlatched the gate from the inside. The metal scraped, stuck, then swung open with a sound like a lock releasing. A small metallic pop that was louder than it should have been because every other sound in the complex had stopped. Tyler stepped through. He'd been on the other side of that chain link for 2 years. He'd pressed his fingers through it, watched through its diamond-shaped openings, memorized an entire sport through a metal wall he was never invited to cross. Now, for the first time, Tyler Shaw was on the inside. His work boots left prints in the warning track dirt. Red clay puffed with each step. The sun was straight overhead. No shade, no shadows, no place to hide. And every single eye in that complex was locked on the kid who had no business being here. Tyler crossed the infield the way a man walks into a room that doesn't want him. Steady, unhurried, work boots on groomed clay. Players in the dugout stared. A couple smirked. One kid nudged his teammate and whispered something behind his glove. Tyler didn't notice. Or if he did, it didn't register on his face. His eyes were locked on the mound. He stepped onto the rubber, felt it under the soles of his boots. The dirt here was different. Soft, graded, maintained. Not like the packed ground behind the duplex. He looked at the chalk lines, the clean geometry. 60 feet, 6 inches to home plate. He'd thrown that distance 10,000 times against a cinder block wall, but never once with a batter standing at the other end. Then came the problem nobody had bothered to think about. Tyler didn't have a glove. The catcher looked at Prescott. Prescott crossed his arms and smiled. He wasn't going to offer one. Why would he? The faster this kid embarrassed himself, the faster the lesson landed. Ray jogged to the mound, pulled a glove from his own equipment bag without a word. An adult-sized infielder's mitt, worn leather, too big by an inch. It smelled like oil and years of somebody else's work. Tyler slid his hand in, flexed it twice, nodded. Good enough. The umpire called for warm-ups, 5 throws. First 2, loose, easy, finding the feel. The catcher set targets. Tyler hit them. Nothing remarkable. A few parents went back to their conversations. Maybe this would be quick and boring. The third warm-up changed the air. The ball hit the catcher's mitt with a crack that didn't match the kid who threw it. Sharp. Clean. Leather on leather. The kind of pop that makes a catcher's hand sting and makes a pitching coach stop mid-sentence. The catcher looked down at his own palm, then looked up at Tyler with a question on his face. A parent in the bleachers stopped talking mid-word. The sentence just died in her mouth. The chatter around the complex dropped. Not silence, not yet, but a frequency shift. Like a room getting quieter when someone opens a door that shouldn't be open. Lead-off hitter for Marietta. Quick hands, compact swing. He dug into the box and crowded the plate. Front foot open, weight forward, looking to drive. The kind of hitter who punishes mistakes and dares you to come inside. Tyler studied him from the rubber, saw the open stance, saw the hands, saw exactly what he'd described to the scout 20 minutes ago. First pitch, fastball on the outer half just off the plate, ball 1. The batter let it go. Tyler wanted that. He wanted the hitter leaning out over the plate, reaching, expecting soft. Second pitch, fastball on the corner, letter high. The batter watched it, called strike. Count, 1 and 1. Now the batter was thinking, timing, adjusting. Certain this kid only threw fastballs, Tyler rocked, kicked, and threw the first perfect pitch. Fastball. Inside corner, belt high, 74 miles per hour. The ball came out of Tyler's hand on a line that looked like it was aimed at the batter's hip. The kid flinched. His hands started, then froze. The ball cut back across the inside corner and hit the catcher's mitt at the knees with a pop that echoed off the backstop. Strike! The batter blinked. The ball had moved. Not a lot, but enough. Enough to freeze a kid who'd been hitting since age 6. Next pitch, fastball, outside edge. The batter swung late, way late. The ball was in the glove before the bat came through. Timing destroyed. Strike 3! Batter 1 walked back to the dugout in silence. He didn't slam his bat, didn't kick dirt, just walked. Like a man leaving a room where something happened that he couldn't explain to anyone, including himself. A murmur ran through the bleachers. Prescott uncrossed his arms. The older scout set his pen down and just watched. Tyler showed nothing. Got the ball back, rubbed it once against his shorts, stared in for the sign. 1 down. But anyone can get lucky once. The next batter was bigger, stronger, and angry. Cleanup hitter. Broad shoulders, thick wrists. He carried the bat like a personal weapon. In the on-deck circle, he'd been swinging big, looping cuts, the kind that say, "I'm about to send this ball somewhere loud." He stepped in, adjusted his helmet, stared at Tyler from under the brim like he wanted to set the mound on fire. This kid had watched batter 1 go down. He'd adjusted. He was sitting, fastball, hunting heat, ready to jump on anything hard and make Tyler pay for it. Tyler gave him what he wanted. First pitch, fastball up and tight. The batter swung, hard, fast, fouled it straight back into the screen. Strike 1. The swing was close, dangerously close. This kid had bat speed that could hurt you. Second pitch, fastball tailing away. The batter reached, fouled it off the end into the dirt. Strike 2. He was making contact, barely, but contact. The bleachers stirred. This at-bat had teeth. The batter stepped out, tapped his cleats, crowded the plate even more, daring Tyler to come inside. Every muscle in his body was loaded for a fastball, locked in, certain. Tyler rocked. Same arm speed, same arm slot, same leg kick, identical mechanics. Every single part of the delivery screamed fastball. The ball came out swimming. The second perfect pitch. A changeup. Same release, same motion, but the ball floated. It drifted toward the plate like a held breath, 10 miles per hour slower than the fastball the batter was expecting. He was already committed. His swing fired early, hard, and underneath. The bat cut through nothing but air, a violent, empty swing that nearly pulled him off his feet. The ball arrived in the catcher's mitt a full beat after the swing was done. The gap between bat and ball was humiliating. Not close. A canyon. Strike 3! The batter corkscrewed, his back knee dipped, his helmet tilted. The bat hung behind him in the air like a question nobody in that ballpark could answer. The bleachers went quiet. Not polite quiet. Stunned quiet. The kind where people look at each other before they look at the field because they need somebody else's face to confirm what they just saw was real. A voice from the third row, barely above a whisper. Where did this kid come from? Prescott was standing perfectly still. No clipboard, no barking, no pacing. Just standing there with his arms at his sides like a man watching his own house burn from across the street and realizing he left the stove on. The younger scout had his phone out. He wasn't taking notes anymore, he was recording. 2 down, 1 to go. But the third batter had been watching everything, and he wasn't going to chase anything. This one was different. You could see it in the walk. No swagger, no aggression. He choked up on the bat, shortened his stance, took a long breath before stepping in. Smart kid. He'd watched 2 teammates swing through fastballs and flail at a changeup that made them look foolish. He wasn't making the same mistake. He was going to be patient, disciplined, make Tyler work. A walk would do. A foul that stayed alive, anything to deny the clean sweep and prove the lawn-mowing kid was human after all. First pitch, fastball outside. The batter laid off, ball 1. Second pitch, changeup, low. He read it this time, let it go. Ball 2. Count, 2-0. In the dugout, Prescott allowed himself a thin smile, his arms uncrossed slightly. The crowd shifted. For the first time in 5 minutes, doubt crawled back in. Maybe 2 batters was the whole show. Maybe the kid had run out of tricks. Maybe Prescott was right all along. Tyler stepped off the rubber, took a breath. Not a showy breath, a real one, the kind you take when you're deciding something that matters. He came back with a fastball inside corner. The batter froze. Strike 1. 2-1. Next pitch. Changeup, outer half. The batter swung, fouled it hard down the first base line. Almost connected. Almost drove it. 2-2. Full count. Full battle. And something happened to the complex. It contracted. The entire world shrank down to 60 feet and 6 inches of red clay and white chalk. The cicadas stopped. The sprinkler system was off. No parents whispering behind sunglasses. The concession stand was still. The breeze died. Even the phone that had been streaming live seemed to hold its breath. Tyler stepped off the rubber one more time, rolled the ball in his bare hand behind his back. His fingers walked across the seams. He turned the ball slowly, deliberately, finding the grip. Here's what nobody in that ballpark knew. Tyler hadn't thrown a curveball yet. Not once. Not to batter 1, not to batter 2, not in warm-ups. He had been hiding it this whole time, saving it, keeping his best card face down on the table for the exact moment when it would matter more than anything else he'd ever done. The older scout knew something was coming. He'd leaned so far forward, his folding chair creaked under his weight. Ray knew. He'd watched Tyler throw curveballs against that cinder block wall, balls that changed direction so violently they looked like someone yanked them sideways on a fishing line. But Prescott didn't know, and the batter definitely didn't know. Tyler stepped back on the rubber. Set. The catcher put down 1 finger. Tyler shook it off. 2 fingers. Shook it off. The catcher paused, then put down 3. Tyler nodded. He rocked, kicked, reached back. Same arm speed, same slot, same everything, and released. The third perfect pitch. A curveball. The ball came out of Tyler's hand, chest high. The batter's eyes went wide. He read it as a mistake, a hanging pitch, a gift sitting in the middle of the zone begging to be crushed. His weight shifted forward, his hands loaded, his swing started, and the ball dropped. It dropped like it fell off a table, like gravity reached up and snatched it out of the air with both hands. The ball dove from chest height to knee height in the space of a blink, still spinning, still biting, and buried itself into the catcher's mitt with a sound that cracked off the backstop and echoed across all 4 diamonds. The batter's swing went over the top, way over. His back knee buckled and hit the dirt. His helmet slid forward over his eyes. The bat slipped out of his hands and clattered against home plate like a surrender. Strike 3! Side retired. Promise kept. And then, nothing. For 3 full seconds, nothing happened. No one moved. No one spoke. No one breathed. The umpire stood frozen with his fist still in the air. The catcher stayed in his crouch, staring at the ball in his glove like it had arrived from another planet. Tyler stood on the mound. Still. Quiet. The borrowed glove at his side. Work boots planted in red clay. 3 seconds of absolute silence. Then, one clap. A single pair of hands. Somewhere in the bleachers. Just one person. Then another. Then 3. Then 5. Then 10. Then the dam broke. Applause crashed across the complex like a wave hitting a seawall. Not polite applause, not scattered golf claps. The kind that pulls people out of their seats before their brains give permission. The kind where strangers look at strangers and nod because they just witnessed something they'll talk about for years. The mother who'd covered her mouth was on her feet, hands above her head. The father who cracked the joke about checking Tyler's pockets was standing too, his palms red, his joke permanently erased from the conversation. A kid in the Bulldogs' dugout leaned to his teammate. Dude, he did it in work boots. 3 batters, 3 strikeouts, 3 perfect pitches. A fastball that painted, a changeup that floated, and a curveball that fell off the face of the earth. A broke black kid who mowed grass for $40 just struck out the side. In work boots, with a borrowed glove, on a mound he'd never stood on before. Talent doesn't care what shoes you're wearing. The applause didn't fade. It kept building, rolling through the bleachers like it was feeding itself. People who hadn't been paying attention 2 minutes ago were on their feet. People who'd laughed at Tyler were clapping hardest, not because they deserved to, but because the moment was bigger than their embarrassment, and they knew it. The Marietta coach crossed the diamond. He didn't have to. He had no obligation to acknowledge the kid who'd just struck out 3 of his best hitters, but he walked to the mound, took off his cap, and shook Tyler's hand. A firm, 2-handed shake, the kind grown men give each other when words aren't sufficient. His players watched from the dugout. A couple of them were nodding slowly. Respect doesn't care which jersey you're wearing. Now find Prescott. He was standing where he'd been for the last 10 minutes. Same spot, same golf cart behind him. But everything around him had rearranged. Parents had drifted, not dramatically, not with intention. The way a crowd naturally reorganizes around a person whose authority has just evaporated in real time. No one was looking at him. No one was asking about tournament schedules. No one was shaking his hand or offering bottled water or treating him like the most important person at the complex. 5 minutes ago, Dale Prescott was the center of gravity at Ridgewood Athletic Park. Now he was standing in the middle of his own showcase, surrounded by his own program, and he was completely, unmistakably alone. The person who'd been streaming live on their phone had turned the camera toward Prescott's face. He didn't notice. But 1,200 strangers on the internet did. His clipboard hung at his side like a prop from a show that had been canceled mid-performance. His aviator sunglasses were still on, but they couldn't hide the jaw, couldn't hide the posture, couldn't hide the slow, visible collapse of a man realizing that every word he'd spoken in the last hour, every insult, every threat, every dismissal, had been proven wrong by a kid with no shoes, no glove, and no invitation. The older scout stood from his folding chair. He walked to Tyler with the slow, measured pace of a man who'd spent 3 decades evaluating talent and had learned that the ones who changed the game rarely looked the way you expected them to. He took off his cap, the gesture of respect that men Tyler's age almost never receive from men that age, and extended his hand. "Son, my name is Bill Anderson. I'm a regional director with the Southeast Development Academy. I've been doing this for 31 years, and I have watched kids come out of $20,000 pitching programs who cannot throw half as clean as what you just did out here today. You struck out the side in work boots with a borrowed glove. I don't need to see anything else. He reached into his windbreaker and pulled out a business card, handed it to Tyler, a small rectangle of cardstock that weighed almost nothing. But in that moment, it carried more weight than everything Tyler owned. Tyler held it with both hands, looked at the name, the logo, the number. Then he looked up at the scout and said 5 words. I just want to play. No boast, no victory speech, no revenge monologue. 5 clean words that landed harder than anything Prescott had said all morning. 5 words that carried more dignity, more composure, and more class than a $2,800 program had produced in 3 seasons. Prescott approached. He couldn't help himself. His sunglasses were off now, tucked into his collar. His voice had pivoted, smooth, reasonable, suddenly generous. Look, Tyler, right? We should talk about getting you into our program. I can see you've got real ability, and with the right coaching environment, he was reaching, trying to claim what he'd just mocked, trying to rewrite 10 minutes of cruelty into a discovery story where he was the one holding the pen. Ray stepped between them, not with a speech, not with volume. He just positioned himself beside Tyler, close enough to mean something, casual enough to not cause a scene, and looked at the scout. Not at Prescott. He addressed the scout directly, as if the manager wasn't standing 3 feet away. I can vouch for this kid. I've watched him throw against a cinder block wall behind his grandmother's duplex for 2 years, every single evening, rain or shine. I drive past it on my way to practice. I've seen what his arm can do since he was 12 years old. He paused. Something moved across his face. The kind of expression that comes from saying out loud what you should have said a long time ago. I should have said something sooner. His voice cracked, just barely, but enough. Enough for everyone standing in that circle to hear 2 years of guilt breaking the surface. Ray had known. Every single evening for 2 years, he'd driven past that duplex on his way to Ridgewood. He'd slowed down at the stop sign on the corner and watched through his windshield as Tyler threw a tennis ball against a cinder block wall with mechanics that were cleaner, sharper, and more natural than anything the $2,800 program had ever produced. He'd watched the kid's arm slot improve month by month. He'd watched the curveball develop. He'd watched the changeup appear one summer evening like a magic trick Tyler taught himself. And he had said nothing. Not one word. Because Prescott ran the show. Because the program had rules about who belonged and who didn't. Because the fence was always closed, and Ray was never the one who held the key. He'd driven past that wall 200 times, and 200 times he'd kept his mouth shut. Until today. Today, the silence cost more than the speech. Prescott stood there, mouth half open. Nothing in it. He looked at Ray, his quiet, obedient assistant for 3 full seasons, and realized for the first time that the loyalty he'd mistaken for agreement had actually been guilt. And the guilt had just run out. The scout squeezed Tyler's shoulder. We'll be in touch this week. Bring your arm. We'll handle everything else. The field emptied slow, the way places do when something happens that people need to carry with them before they can leave. Parents folded chairs and collapsed canopies and loaded coolers into SUVs, but the conversations were different, quieter, more careful. Every group of adults walking toward the parking lot had some version of the same sentence. Did you see that kid? Tyler stood by the equipment shed. The adrenaline was fading. His hands were starting to shake, not from fear, but from the kind of release that comes after holding yourself together for longer than anyone should have to. He looked down at the borrowed glove on his left hand. Ray's glove. He pulled it off slowly, held it in both hands, and walked over. Here, Thank you. Ray looked at the glove, then at Tyler. He didn't take it. He put his hand on top of it and pushed it back. Keep it. It's yours now. Tyler didn't have words for that. He held the glove against his chest. The leather was warm from the sun and the innings. It smelled like neat's foot oil and red clay and years of someone else's catches, broken in by 1,000 practice reps, softened by sweat and time. It was the first real baseball glove Tyler Shaw had ever owned. Not borrowed, not temporary. His. He pressed it against his ribs and felt the warmth of it through his t-shirt. His eyes stung. He blinked once. That was all he allowed himself. Ray pulled out his phone. You need to call somebody? Tyler dialed his grandmother's number. She picked up on the first ring. Not the second, not the third, the first. Because she'd been sitting by the phone since he left that morning. She didn't know what was happening at Ridgewood. She just knew her grandson was there and she was waiting. She was always waiting. Even when she didn't know what she was waiting for. Grandma, I pitched today on a real field, a real mound, against real batters. Silence on the other end. Not confused silence, not distracted silence. The kind of silence that listens with its whole body. The kind that holds space for something big to land. 3 batters. I struck out all 3. More silence. Then, soft, steady, certain, like she was reading from something she'd written in her heart years ago. I know, baby. I've been knowing. That wall told me everything I needed to hear. Tyler closed his eyes. Let the words land where they needed to. The complex was nearly empty now. The last SUV pulled out of the lot with a crunch of gravel and a travel ball decal catching the afternoon light. Prescott sat in his golf cart at the far edge of the parking lot, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. He wasn't going anywhere. He was looking at the mound, the rubber, the footprints in the clay, work boot prints, not cleat marks. The exact spot where a 14-year-old had undone 3 seasons of his authority in 10 minutes and 9 pitches. The live stream was still circulating. He didn't know that yet. He would by tonight. He didn't drive away, just sat. Tyler handed the phone back, tucked the glove under his arm, walked to his bicycle. The card sat in his pocket. Its edges were already soft from sweat and Georgia heat. Same road home, same bicycle, same pedals, but different. That evening, Tyler stood in front of the cinder block wall, glove on, tennis ball in hand. He threw 3 pitches, same as every night. Same crack against the block, same rhythm. But tonight, his grandmother came outside. She didn't watch from the kitchen window. She walked through the back door, eased herself down onto the concrete step and sat. She watched all 3 pitches, every one. When he finished, she clapped. 3 slow claps. Not loud, not for anyone else to hear. Just her hands in a quiet yard with fireflies blinking in the grass and the sky turning purple behind the duplex. The first applause that ever truly mattered. 3 weeks later, Tyler Shaw walked through the front gate of the Southeast Development Academy in Decatur. Not the side entrance, not through a gap in the fence, not behind a mower. The front gate. The one with the Academy crest above it and a banner that read, "Development starts with opportunity." He had a glove. Ray's glove. His glove, now. He had cleats. A week after the showcase, Ray dropped them off at the duplex. They came from a kid who outgrew them. Tyler's grandmother took them without questions. She recognized the kindness underneath the excuse. Set them by the front door and said, "Try 'em on after dinner." They fit perfectly. The tryout was brief. Tyler didn't need to perform a miracle a second time. He warmed up, he threw. The coaches watched. They exchanged the nod, The quick, wordless look that coaches give each other when they've found something they don't need to debate. He made the roster. Full scholarship. Equipment, travel, tournament fees, everything covered. The only thing Tyler had to bring was his arm and his willingness to work. He had both. Always had. Back at Ridgewood, the ripple was quiet but real. Prescott's program lost 2 families that summer. Not over confrontation, not over drama, over a question that had started circling the bleachers like smoke after a fire. Who else is on the other side of the fence that we're not seeing? Once you hear that question, it changes the way you look at every chain-link fence you pass. Ray left the Bulldogs at the end of August. He started a free weekend clinic at a public park in Clarkston, open to any kid who wanted to throw, hit, or field, regardless of what their family could afford. He ran it from his truck bed. 2 buckets of balls, a bag of used gloves, a portable screen he bought secondhand. Tyler helped on Saturdays. First week, 4 kids showed up. By the end of the month, 11. By October, they had to split into 2 groups because there wasn't enough room on one diamond. Here's where I could wrap it up with a neat bow and tell you what it all means. But I think you already know. Tyler Shaw didn't walk onto that mound to prove anyone wrong. He walked on because he'd been ready for 2 years and nobody had bothered to ask. He threw against a cinder block wall every single night. Not because someone assigned it, not because a program required it, but because the work itself was the point. The wall didn't ask about his shoes. The wall didn't charge $2,800. The wall just gave him back exactly what he put in. Every single time. Talent doesn't wait for an invitation. It throws against a wall every night until someone opens the gate. 3 weeks into the academy season, Tyler pitched his first official game. Real uniform, real lineup card, real cleats that gripped the rubber instead of slipping. Before his first pitch, he looked at the chain-link backstop behind home plate. Same diamond pattern, same metal weave. He'd spent 2 years watching baseball through a fence exactly like that one, pressing his fingers into it, studying through it, dreaming through it. He knew what fences looked like from both sides now. He smiled. Then he rocked, kicked, and delivered. The ball popped the catcher's mitt. The umpire raised his hand. Strike 1! Same arm, same heart, same kid. Just a bigger yard. And somewhere in Clarkston, behind a duplex on a quiet street, there's a cinder block wall with a scuff mark at chest height and a coffee can on the back steps with a tennis ball sitting inside it. It's still there. Just in case.